That was the job when I was in software business development, where I learned really more about IT, and it actually established me as an IT professional. I learned databases, I learned how to create my own coding to mine data. Most of these I am just self taught.
Hello.
Hi there,
Hi, Kitchie. How are you?
I'm good.
Thank you for spending some time with me on your Saturday. So, tell me a little bit about yourself, and we should get started.
Sure. Um, So I'm born and raised in Manila, Philippines. It's actually where I obtained my medical degree, and it's also where I had a just about a year of residency training in anesthesiology. And after that, I met my husband, and we moved to Honolulu, Hawaii, and that's where we started a family. We got married, started a family, and that's when leaving the country, being in another country, it changes, my how I view what I wanted to do in my career. Uh, and there's a lot of opportunities in the States, and it gave me an idea of exploring um, who really I am, what I wanted to do, what are my skills, what are my gifts, and work from there. But of course, there's that part wherein we started a family. So after 2 years of moving here in Honolulu, have we had a child, and that boy is now 20 years old. But when I look back, I remember how I prioritized being a mom, and also I have to learn about this new country. I have to learn how to navigate as an immigrant.
So, at any point, did you consider USMLE steps that route?
I did. I was pregnant. I was studying, and I was having contractions, and I said, "Okay, I'm going to stop this." But I also tried part-time jobs and see how it is to work outside healthcare.
Okay, great. And so, what did you do then? What did you decide to do at that point?
One of the first jobs, because at this point, so I had my boy, so first 2 years here, and then I delivered the baby, and then I got my son, and I wanted to be with him until he can go to a preschool. So he was still in my tummy. I've shopped around for preschools, and the waiting list was, I think it was 16 months, and he's about to come out. So at exactly when he turned 16 months, he was in the wait list, and he gets into the to the preschool. So for the first 16 months, I took care of him. It's just me and him. I wasn't working, and I thought it would be good for him to socialize, to go to a preschool half day, like in the morning. So in the morning, he goes to the preschool, and for me, I get to think about what I'm going to do. So that's when I started applying for jobs. And I don't know what to do as a medical doctor, because I didn't really gain a lot of skills. If you will think about it, you're just in school, you're studying, and the skills that you know are inside. Like for me, it's inside the OR. So um, what I did was, there was a job fair, and I walk in a job fair, and in that job fair, I think there's one which is working at the bank. Um, uh, in commercial loans, which is very different from what I know. But with that job, I help them with generating contracts for commercial loans, for business loans. So every day I read about business plans. So I learned what a business plan look like, what are the components of it through work, and I get to have a good understanding of how to get your loan as a business person, the line of credits, revolving line of credits, and I had that education in finance that I never had through the banking products. Um, that was the first job that I got through a job fair, and I think I
So,
did that
even
for
as
a
starting
year.
out, you went non-clinical. Starting out,
Yes,
you started out as a non-clinical physician.
yeah, I tried a non-clinical. a non-clinical job, like has nothing to do with medicine or health at all.
Yeah. And so how challenging was it to find and to work in this
It's very
completely alien
challenging.
environment?
I landed on that job because I applied in pharmaceuticals, and they're looking for, so pharmaceuticals, from in the Philippines, you can easily get in pharmaceutical sales if you come from something clinical, like if you finished uh, something that's related to health and sciences, you can easily get that job. In the States, I found out that they look for the sales, and I didn't have the sales. So it was really difficult that I decided, okay, I'm going to walk in a job fair, because what am I going to do? I need to do something, And I walked in and I got that. But I thought it was one of the most eye opening, because it taught me finance. It is something that we should know. I mean, even before we went to medical school, even when we were going to school, it is the most basic thing. You need to understand how a bank works. What happens to the money in the bank when how does the bank make the money, or what happened when you put your money in the bank? It is something I should have learned this before I even went to medical school. But in here, I start to learn it, and but it didn't last long, because I started to miss about healthcare, because what I felt is this: I am in a very non-clinical job. So what did I do here? I went to an industry where I am the newest person. And if you're the newest person there, or you're the most junior, um, you lost that. You lost being the one that people look up to, because you sort of lead. When I was in the OR, I lead, even if I was just a resident. I teach the more junior interns. I get to do that. But in here, I'm the newbie. I'm the new person. I don't know anything. And so to feel that is a little bit difficult, because in terms of how people look at me, oh, you don't know anything about this. They question that. So what I did is, okay, I think I need to go back to school, and I need to be able to at least use what I know clinically and combine it to what I learned when I got here, which is finance. So now I'm looking into, I learned how a bank works, but I really don't understand how the U.S. Health system works on the financial level. Maybe I could do something like that. And so I applied for a program, which is just online, because I'm still taking care, of course, of my family. Um, something that would help me while I'm working. I need to work full time, but I need to go to school. So I took a master's degree in health administration, and the focus is informatics. There were two others. One is, I think, general health administration. The other one is geriatrics, and then the other one, I chose the informatics, because for some reason I felt that that's where we going to head after I did the commercial loans, when I start to work on information. So I took that. So I had to leave the the bank. I need to find, the program says I have to be in a job where I can use what I'm learning. So I have to be in a hospital, doesn't have to be clinical. I have to be in the administrative side, uh, or information technology, and or finance side. So I move, and that's when I took a job in data integrity. Now it's about reviewing the medical records in a state hospital. Sometimes they get corrupted, because when our patients are um, uh, sometimes they come in and they give a different name, and so another record is created, and by just looking at it, you would tell who was that patient, and we try to track it, because usually they're either homeless, or they go back and forth to the hospital until we're able to track, oh yes, this is that patient, and then we do something with the document, so that it's cleaner, and doctors can rely on it. So um, that one, while I'm studying for school, and that job wasn't really busy, so I get the time to study most of the time. It's about, I think, 18 months to 2 years that I did that. the classes.
Great. And so, tell me what you do now and how you carved your path to your current
Yes.
situation.
So pretty much over the years, remember what I was trying to do is I'm trying to find, first of all, when I discovered when I was in my anesthesiology training, when I was hitting a year, it made me feel that I was in the wrong place. I why did I get into medical school in the first place? I just want to get to that. In the Philippines, my mom, I remember growing up. I think this is her dream, to be a physician herself, but she didn't get to be one, and so she. Um, she told me, she convinced me that, if you become a doctor in our country, you will literally never go hungry because people will appreciate you and they will actually, you may not get paid, but they will bring you like, and I saw this, people bring vegetables or some of their chickens, from their farm, and they give it to doctors. Okay, this makes sense, but then my life has changed because I moved to the United States. So I started to think, what am I going to do here? Because first of all, do I go back to being a doctor when before I even left, I was so stressed? And could I go back to anesthesiology? And if I do something else, what was it that I didn't like? And I remembered, yeah, you see a lot of patients, you try to help them, but if they're not compliant, that really makes me feel like my work is for nothing. Like you educate them about the medications that they should take. They get worse anyway because they're not going to follow. So, and plus the fact I started to understand about myself. What are my gifts? What are my talents? And what am I passionate about? Those I believe are very, very important. So I look at myself. Who am I? Why did I get so stressed in anesthesiology? First of all, I was only in the OR area. I love to go out. I love to be meeting a lot of people, and that doesn't happen when you're in the OR all the time. So um, maybe that's what I'm not supposed to do. And so as I try to understand who I am, but there's only one thing that I know is that I will never do that again. I will never go into a place wherein I couldn't bring with me the previous skills that I already accumulated. Otherwise, it's going to be um, a waste of time, and that's not going to happen anymore. And that's why I went to this school. And also at that time, that was 2008 to 2010 when I did that. And at that time, you would hear it was President Obama when he was running for office. He talked about the Obamacare, and I had a feeling that the database is going to be important. And I said, by 2014, I should be an expert in this field. And recruiters should be calling me because they need a consultant, those kind of sort of stuff. I realized that I'm not going to be in the clinical, but I will be in the backgrounds. I will understand how the hospital, the business of of, of the private practices, understand how a hospital works, how they charge, how they make the money, and all that. So I thought I should do that. And I learned also that the resume, what they use for applying the job, has to tell a story. So I couldn't just be applying a job here and there. It has to tell a story where I started and where I moved. It will tell the people looking for the hiring people about the skills that you accumulated when you were there. So my resume is just 1 to 2 years. For some, they don't like it because they think that, oh, you can't even stay long in a job. Well, for me, I learned already how it works in a year. So after a year, if I put an application, it will take, and as I go up uh, with the position, um, it will give me time. So it's almost about 2 years, and then I get another job. So the next job after the the data integrity is another one, but I got back to a regular hospital, and I did the same until I finish the schooling. And when I finished it, because there's informatics in there, and plus the fact that I've always been very good in the information technology side because I've been programming since I was 14 years old. So that helped. It's a gift that it is something that I have that I'm very good at. It was technology and finance. So those two, I zeroed in on those two, and I got a job now. So I'm moving now from hospital at that time to an insurance company. It's a managed care organization. So they offer Medicare and Medicaid. So it's my chance now to understand how Medicare works, how Medicaid works. And the job was in the information technology side where I configure claims. I learned to configure claims so they pay correctly. So I understood contracts, I understood the benefits and how you put them in the system, coding. Basically, I learned all that there. And I stayed there again for another 2 years. Then I moved now to a software development company that creates application systems for quality improvement. So basically, now I moved to my job there is actually a software business analyst. So you know the programmers, they create their coding, their programs, but someone who understands how the business works. And I found out that fewer and fewer people understand the big picture of healthcare. And I started to tell them, for example, how we configure things, which is the priority. Why is something not a priority? Because in the medical world, these things doesn't happen, so we shouldn't do that. I'll tell you one example. Even before this, we're trying to configure how Medicare would pay for pregnant women. So if you will think about it, they cannot go live without that. But if you will think about it, it's a very rare situation because most Medicare are 65 and older, and if they're under 65, they're disabled. What are the chances that they're going to be pregnant? So when I explain that to them, so it's not a priority, we can go live, we just have to catch if it's a pregnant person. So I was able to provide that support to everyone. That was the job when I was in software business development, where I learned really more about IT, and it actually established me as an IT professional. I learned databases, I learned how to create my own coding to mine data. Most of these I am just self taught, and so after that, my LinkedIn, I start to put keywords and I start to create that story of where I came from. And so headhunters are noticing it. And that was the beginning of the time that I never had to apply for a job. Headhunter would call and they would say, like I met one, she's a HR consultant, and she told me she has her own company, and she called me and she said, "Hey, I noticed your LinkedIn. You know, this was around 2013," and she said that I there is this hospital and they're trying to start a business development department, and they had a hard time filling that position because they had the first person who did it, um, he left within 90 days, and so we're looking for someone who understands the clinical, who should be able to write a business plan for healthcare. And she thinks that was me just based on how my LinkedIn looks like. So she said, can you do me a favor? Can I know you're not applying for a job, but can you at least talk to the hiring manager? Just talk to her, because she's the one looking for someone like you. And I did. I showed up, and uh, she she told me she told me about the job, what she wanted to do, and I thought, okay, I'm starting to get bored with what I'm doing now anyway, and I thought I because that's the hospital I used to work from, and it would be nice to go back in that hospital, and uh, and it's a better position. It was a huge pay increase, and so I decided to go back, and that's when I learned how to write business plans for every programs that they have, a healthcare marketing plan, as well as a part of it because I did market research. I became much better as a researcher and an analyst because before I just queried the database at work. But right now I go to government resources. I go to somewhere else. I pick up a lot of articles. I read them together, and I learned how to come up with a story. And based on that story, what is actually going on and how can we improve things? So that's the one that I learned from there. And then again, after a while, like I said, I don't have to apply anymore for a job. I start to talk to people, and I that is also the time where I've seen that people don't really submit resumes anymore, because my other coworkers, they get jobs because um, they meet hiring managers or other companies, and sometimes they even create a position for them, because just by knowing what you do, how unique you are, it gives people an idea what they need also. And so sometimes that happened first in my experience. But this one, there was actually a job that I fit. uh, but after a few years from this job, because I work heavily again with the revenue management cycle of the hospital, the revenue cycle management has been looking for a charge master for um, for some years now. Charge master, I think that was her previous job, and nobody took over. And she got promoted. And I said, "So what does this job do?" And she said, "Oh, you get to learn to price the services." And then, so basically, you understand all these, and you got to do both professional and hospital. And that is interesting, and it is finance. And yeah, I'm going to go and learn it. And there's an application that we used. And so um, it reinforces my knowledge when it comes to contracting, benefits, understanding the cost of a particular service, how it's going to be priced. And I understand that it's different, because um, healthcare is very localized. It is a localized economic activity. So your price in one area and the price somewhere else is different. So I learned to do that, and I think I did that not for a long time. I guess it's over a year, but it's good enough to pick it up how it works. So overall, going back, that was the last job I had in a organization, and overall, when I looked at myself, I realized, oh, I am an analyst, so I thought I was only a detailed person, but a part of me is also uh, a big picture person. In fact, I'm actually a big picture person. That's the reason why I don't want to focus on minor things. I have to move because I am trying to understand the big picture. And then I do things in details, but if I can manage the bigger picture, I would do that. So I said, okay, maybe, because that year I fully paid the student loan. Remember, I went to take my master's degree, and I said, oh, I paid my last payment, and I said, okay, I guess I can leave now. And the funny part is that I did it again. I went and started a business that is marketing, but it's not clinical, because the clinical marketing is just so a lot of regulations in it. So what I did is I just took like courses, but I think it's one of the best ones, because I did marketing in healthcare, but this one gave me more insight about social media, Google, how it's done today. But the layer that I can add to that, coming from the healthcare side, is the culture of healthcare. They don't know that. If you meet the marketing people, they don't know that. So me, I know that. And so I tried to do it until the pandemic hits. So now we're hitting 2019, and okay, I just started something, and then the pandemic hits, and people don't want to spend money. And so, and at that time, we were still in Honolulu, because remember, I lived in Honolulu for 20 years. And during the pandemic, my husband, who's already retired in the US Air Force, and I told him, he's been in his job for 10 years, and I realized I feel like we're stuck, and we're too young to be stuck, and we thought we're going to stay in Honolulu forever. And um, so I said, the opportunities are in DC. I told him, I think when you go to DC, because he's a federal worker, he came from the Department of Defense. So I'm also thinking about his career. And, but if we go into DC, there's opportunity. And I know that, there's probably opportunity for me there. I can feel it. So anyway, he tried applying for a job. It took us a year, and then we moved to DC we're actually in Maryland right now. So we're in the DC Maryland area. We are located at the where the three DC Maryland Virginia at those borders. So I have a friend that I met while I was doing business in Hawaii, and he told me he's actually a Medicare agent, and he said, "You know so much that I think you will do good if you become like me." Oh, you mean health insurance agent, broker? And he said, "Yes, because not so many understands it like you do. I mean, we learned it, but the way you understood it is that you can talk about how the claim was exactly paid by the code, that to the point that that because I was trying to tell him, he would tell me about issues with the payment of the doctors. And as a former doctor, I care that providers should be paid, So I see that big picture. But so I told him, well, usually the claim gets denied for a lot of reasons, incomplete information and all that. Sometimes you just have to go back and make the information complete. But at the same time, the way it is configured in the system, was there a wrong code? That's why you have appeal. You can ask about these things and they can look at it and they will realize, oh, it's just something is missing over here and we can fix it. So he realizes I can do that as I help him resolve issues. And then I realized, okay, there is one skill that I never learned, that I realized it should have been, aside from finance, one of the skills that we should have learned even when we were young, and that was sales. But not because to sell just because, but we need to be able to, like, even when you're educating, you need to be able to sell an
Everything is a
idea,
sales. Even
right?
interviewing for a job, you're selling yourself,
Yes.
basically.
So I realized that, and I had difficulty. There was a learning curve. I started this business 2021. I started as an independent agent, and the industry also is plagued with people who cannot be trusted because they're doing sales. And this is where I realized, well, I should approach teaching health literacy in a different way. But, I think I can do it if I become a health insurance broker and I focus only on health. And I tell people I don't do life because as a non-practicing physician, to me, it's all about health. If you have a healthy community, um, there's a lot of opportunity for them. If a lot of them are sick, and this happened during the pandemic, if everyone is sick, then you're not going to go somewhere. And so, um, I started to talk to people in a different way. I've seen people buy health insurance just to use it because they got sick. And I said, well, the plans that come out today, when I look at them, um, just by merely looking at them, you could tell that they were designed to keep people healthy. However, when you have a higher level of care required, you need something else. So it's basically looking at all these products. And my first take is, um, uh, what is the most appropriate from someone based on their lifestyle needs, the requirement for the services that they need, and also based on financial. So, it doesn't make sense to pay for something you cannot afford and then it provides you all these services, it pays for all services that you're not going to need. But there are also rules and they need to understand the rules. So I can better communicate that, and I know that my competitors, they can only talk about what's the lowest cost, what's the lowest premiums. That's just what they would present, and so. But for my end, what I talk about is that okay, here's your health plan, and this is how you're going to use it so you stay healthy. And what I tell my clients is that, well, think about it. If you are going to see your doctor and it's not a checkup, remember you see your doctor once a year for checkups, but if you're going to see her 5 times more and it's not a checkup for something preventable, think about it. You're now going to pay for your deductibles and your copays. Don't you save money if you stay healthy? And they start to see it that way, especially some of the seniors. They start to understand how to use it because by staying healthy, um, they don't pay a lot of copays. They minimize their out of pocket costs. So I start to educate that way, and I start to enjoy it. Plus the fact that some of the skills that I brought with me, to be honest, is the data integrity. If I enter the correct data all the time, I understand how databases work. And if I put them correctly, and if something hits incorrectly, I know what happened. I know what to do. I know who to call. I know when to open a ticket because the system doesn't seem to be doing it correctly. Because I did the software business analyst, so I could tell if the system is built well. And this is what I know too. Um, those who develops their systems are very open to improving it, and they rely on people who use it. But if you don't say anything about it, it's not going to be fixed. And so I've always called and I've always tell them, you know what, you have to fix it. It's doing it this way. And they're very receptive to it and they will update it. But that's how I got here. So right now, before I used to write a business plan for the hospital. Right now I'm writing for my own. And everywhere you go, it's always the execution. So you know that, um, this is one of those instances, right? I don't regret going into medical school because you're able to see it from theoretical that you're studying it, and then you go to the OR and you try to do the surgery and you cannot do it on the first day. You have to be assisted until you can do the whole thing. So in the Philippines, it's not highly regulated. I went to a government hospital for my training, and during my postgraduate internship before I even went into residency, I was able to deliver a baby, did appendectomy. Those are the two surgeries I was able to do, insert the chest tube, those kind of things. But what I remembered is that I can read them from the book, but once I start to do them, there's a lot of factors that's not in the book, a lot of information. Um, and you have to do them many many times to get it right. So I applied it with learning. um, uh, Being able to do that helped me learn things that I needed to learn. So all I need to do is understand how it works. Starts with my brain, like a recipe. You read a recipe, but you'll never learn it if you're just going to read it. You have to cook it. And then the first time that you cook it, it's not going to have the taste that you want. It's you have to do several repeats to taste the way how you want it to taste. But overall, every time I meet somebody who landed into the field of medicine and they don't think that it's something that they could do anymore, it's really, I encourage them to sit down and understand first who they are. This is something that was taken away from us. And aside from this business, I also established a nonprofit where it's about self-directed learning that we promote. Because when we were young, we went to school and they told us what to study, and we had 6 hours of schooling, and then they give us homework, and we never had time to explore what we want to do. So I would encourage someone to explore, try to remember what is it that you really like to do and you weren't able to do it because you don't have the time for it. It could be as simple as art. I think art is one of the one that was given a bad name in school.
Mhm.
Arts, entertainments,
Art
and
will never
sports.
make you money.
Right, and right now, so I remembered my son, because my son, one of the reasons also why I didn't go back, I have a son with autism, ADHD, and mixed expressive and receptive language disorder. So he's someone that I have to study. And you know how ADHD and autism is just one page in the medical school book. So this one, it's one thing that I had to learn for the past 20 years. And so I looked at him and I realized, okay, at first I thought I will have a son who's going to be a doctor or maybe somewhere STEM. But when I looked at him, when he hit middle school, I remember he borrowed my camera and he took this the best looking photo that I've ever seen, and I didn't realize my camera could do that. So I said, you looks like you have a gift here. So I started to take him in photography, and I started to find out, okay, I have a son who's an artist. And I remember one time he was playing basketball in school, and the athletics director reminded them that your priority is the academics, and they start to question it. So why would academics be the priority if you you're really meant to be an artist, and why do we look down on them? Because football players, they make a lot, or they become successful, what do you call that, anybody in the entertainment industry and all that, those who do art, and plus the fact that art is something that help us, especially at the most difficult times of our lives. We can't talk to people, but we can convert the pain that we feel into something beautiful. We feel good, and people fall in love with the art that we create. And how come, that we don't pay attention to this? So after that, I start to remind people that just listen to what you want and follow that lead. If you like art, learn everything about art. Learn how you can make money with art. Learn how, because a lot of people did that. Those who were given chance to do that, did very well. But all I tell people is that everyone is unique. And once you're here and you just study the world where you are at, you get to understand where you belong in this world, what you're meant to do, where do you sit, what is that one thing that only you can do. And sometimes it's difficult to think about it because we're sitting on a place that we're where we got in, and we don't know how to move there. But I always tell them to just give yourself time, think about it, follow, and don't do this again to your kids. If your parents like push you to go to college and you don't want to go to college, look at your own child. Make sure that, because as you do that, um, like with my boy, I found out he's an artist, right? He loves something with fashion. He loves something because he's a nature photographer. And uh, right now he's a fashion model. It makes sense. He had a hard time with words. With fashion modeling, you don't have to speak a whole lot. So, okay, that makes sense to me. This is probably, it's not the main thing, but it is somewhere there. It's about art or building art or something that he likes to do. But if you are in a place where you are stressed, and, then that's difficult. So, that's just what I recommend people.
Yeah, self acceptance and self awareness are um, kind of key before you start, you know, discovering your path, or your passion, or your whatever it is that you are meant to do in the world. So I 100% agree with you. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Looking back, I know that you mentioned that you have no regrets. Is there something you could have done differently?
I look back, and I thought, if let's say my parents didn't interfere, um, when I was in my experience, and when I observed my son, it was middle school. You kind of get an idea of what they like to do. And I look at the other artists, it was middle school for some of them. So, middle school, I was writing poems, and I love to write, and I love technology. So, and my son also in middle school when he did the photography. So, I saw that I love art, and what could I have done differently? In my mind, if I was given a choice when I was entering college, I was thinking, oh, should I could have been, and I could have gone into something that involves writing. So either maybe if I will have an advanced degree, I could have been a lawyer, or I could have been technology. So maybe right now, if I was an attorney, it will be intellectual property, something like that. They also they also help with the nonprofits, which I love to do. I love service. Medical missions is what I did a lot in the Philippines. Is how I was able to do the procedures myself. I love doing that. But sometimes in the past few days I was thinking maybe the one that I would enjoy, maybe that was going to law school, or something about writing and technology and going to law school. one of the things that I said, the job that I would really love probably is being an editor. I don't know why I thought about it, but I got this book and I read it, and what is the work of the editor, and there's a lot in editing. You know, you just don't do the proofreading; you also do the developmental editing and all that. They look at all the books before they get published, and they talk to a lot of writers, you know, and they sort of like, because right now, the reason why I thought that recently, there's a lot of self-published books, and they're not really policed anymore, and sometimes after you read it, you know, you realize, oh, I just wasted my time on this book. But then it's hit or miss. There are self-published books also that I found that are really, really good. But I think it's just the daily life of it. You go out on lunches, you talk to other writers, you know, it's all about words. And I should probably really enjoy that. But then at the same time, I don't regret it because um, being in the healthcare field, a lot of people needs help. And one of the things, as somebody who understands the whole continuum of healthcare, you know, people don't understand this. When you present yourself to a particular place of service, for example, when you present yourself at a clinic or you present yourself as the skilled nursing facility, the people there don't know what happened to you, where you came from. And sometimes they don't even care because nobody told them the story about it. Like the patient you're looking at right now used to be going to the clinic only. And now they're going to the skilled nursing. And why is that? You know, they don't seem to see the big picture for the patients. And it becomes, how can I do my job right in front of me so you're out of my sight? But nobody really thinks it from that patient's view. Like if you do not help this patient in a certain way because it's not your job, then it impacts a lot of things. And I tell you one example, right? The dental is not really covered by Medicare. So what happens if you have a poor dental care? Isn't it a lot of medical complications that happen that impacts your current care? So you're really better off having a dental coverage and go see and make it preventive. So being able to do that, because I see that nobody does it, provides literacy when it comes to clinical finance and technology, because you need to understand, a lot of people don't understand what exactly they're paying for. uh,
Yeah.
Healthcare is a very unique um, business. In regular business, you have a buyer and a payer, and your buyer and a seller. Your buyer is usually the one who's going to pay for what they buy, and they buy things. When you tell them it's $100, then that's the price of it. In healthcare, you have your patient, and it's different from the payer, and there's this so much complication. So people don't understand exactly what they're paying for, and they don't take responsibility also for their health. They realize that I got sick, so and so must pay for it, and then they pass the cost around. And this is the funny part too. uh, our politicians talk about costs, and then the patients wonder why they pay a lot. And then I start to explain, well, you know, cost means differently to everyone. If you are a patient, it's your out of pocket cost. If you are the government talking, they're talking about what Medicare will pay or what health payers will pay. And if they pay a small amount, who will pay the rest? Because there was the cost incurred. So it's typically most likely the patient would pay for it, but then who really did incur the cost? It's the provider that did that. You know, they have to hire labor, they have to provide you the facility where they provide it. You can say the payment should just be this much. At the end of the day, if they don't cover that cost, you know, can you afford a provider to shut down and there's no care for you? So people don't really think that way. And I thought that when I start to talk to them, I want them to understand that. I want them to understand that um, if they're healthy, you may spend money to stay healthy. You know, you pay for your gym and everything. But if when you're sick, um, there's a higher level of care, there's a lot of cost. And if you thought that you could build a legacy from your finance, from whatever assets that you have, you may have to use all that assets now to make you feel better. So it's important to keep this in mind to make our decisions wisely when it comes to health. And another thing is also making understand even the other providers how how the payment is the way it is. Why is it the way it is? At the end of the day, there's not a lot of resources. That's just it. And nobody wants to pay for healthcare. Every November when they shop, they think about the smartphone, the gadgets they're going to buy, the tech they're going to buy, but they're not really thinking about investing on their own. They won't even buy the food that will keep them healthy. But it is a necessity that you stay okay. Otherwise, it's a huge burden financially, also emotionally, for the rest of the family. So I thought one of the things that is very important is the health literacy. Or I know we have a health literacy program, but for some reason I don't. When I speak to patients, they don't really see it that way. There's a huge gap. So we have all these systems that we implement. For example, providers, insurance companies, they come up with these systems, so it's high tech, right? But then the level of the literacy of the people is really far behind. So they don't really prove to be useful. You still have to make them reach the gap, and it's a huge problem that I am seeing. And I thought that maybe this is an area where I could be in, but I cannot do this alone. It's nice to have other people join and share the same passion for education and understanding that a healthy community, we it paves the way for innovation. We're better when we're healthy.
Yeah, thank you so much for your talk. And I know we have been going back and forth on Facebook for a long time, so I'm so happy to finally meet you face to face. And it's always encouraging to hear foreign medical graduate success stories. And thank you so much for sharing your journey with us.
Thank you for inviting me. And I really, some of the other doctors who wants to leave do message me and would like to speak to me. And I do, as a part of what I do, I dedicate time uh, uh, to educate. Because remember, I had a nonprofit as for educational. This is one of those, even if it's not healthcare. It's just simply telling people, um, follow your passions and just understand. Of course, you can't just follow it and make it a hobby. If you can find a way how to make it a business or to earn a living doing it, that would be the best life lived for me.
Yeah, and so how do people find you?
So I have a website. It's kitchiemcbride.com. It's my name, KITCHIEMCBRIDE.com. So that is my website. And I sometimes write blogs when I have time. I'm also on Facebook, LinkedIn, and it should be the link should be in the
Show
website.
notes.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Kishi.
Thank you so much. You have a wonderful weekend.
And you too.
Bye.